Misery. Stephen King. A tight psychological horror thriller set in an isolated, high-pressure situation, built for clear scene momentum and steady tension without complex mythology. If you start Stephen King in the wrong place, the writing can feel heavier than it needs to. This guide is for first-time readers who want the cleanest entry, not the biggest badge. Stephen King is a working-class storyteller with journalist clarity. His best books read like you are being walked through a tense situation, one concrete detail at a time. The trick is that his range is wide. Some books are short and sharp, some are huge and slow burn, some are supernatural, some are almost entirely psychological. This video gives you 3 comfort lanes, 5 starter books, and a simple plan for what to read next. You can read one book, stop, and still feel like you got the Stephen King experience. The goal is clarity. You want to finish one book and feel oriented. After that, Stephen King stops being intimidating and starts being a menu. This guide stays spoiler-free. It focuses on tone, pace, and commitment level. If you follow the lanes, you avoid common beginner drop points and you still end up with an authentic first experience. The Stand, Stephen King. A massive slow-burn epic with a huge cast and long arcs rewarding once you trust his long-form style, but high friction as a first book. Many people bounce off Stephen King because they start with the wrong kind of difficulty. There are 3 common traps. The first is starting with a doorstop novel. The Stand, the complete and uncut edition, is long and it asks for patience before it pays you back. The second trap is starting with a myth-heavy entry point. The Gunslinger is short, but it belongs to a larger mythos and the tone is stranger than people expect. The third trap is starting with an iconic horror title because it feels like the obvious choice. It is a great book, but it is also big, and it spends time building atmosphere and community before the tension tightens. None of these are bad books. They are just high-friction starts. Another beginner mistake is choosing a book because it is famous, not because it matches your reading habits. Fame does not equal fit. If you read in short bursts, a tighter book like Misery or Carrie will reward you faster. If you enjoy slower build, The Shining is a better first classic than a 1,000-page commitment. Your first King book should feel like a door you can open, not a test you have to pass. Here is the simplest way to choose your first Stephen King book. Pick a comfort lane. Lane 1 is short and classic. You want to see early King voice and you want a fast finish. Lane 2 is psychological pressure. You want tension without heavy world building, and you prefer realistic stakes over monsters. Lane 3 is long but readable. You like big immersive books, but you still want clear prose and a steady forward pull. Each lane has a starter that is widely available in print and audio. Each starter also teaches you something different about King. Carrie, Stephen King. This is the quick origin point. It is early work, it is direct, and it shows how he builds discomfort from ordinary life without requiring a huge time investment. Misery, Stephen King. This is the cleanest craft demonstration. It is focused and it shows how he sustains tension scene by scene. November 22, 63, Stephen King. It is long, but the chapters move and the prose stays approachable even when the scope expands. Misery, Stephen King. This is the best first Stephen King book for most beginners. It is a psychological thriller with horror intensity, but it stays grounded and easy to follow. One of the biggest benefits is scale. The story stays tight. You are not tracking dozens of names. You are not learning a complicated system. You are watching pressure rise decision by decision. King is famous for atmosphere. In Misery, the atmosphere comes from routine details, small constraints, and the way fear changes what you notice. The book also teaches you his pacing. He builds tension in waves. He gives you small resets. Then he tightens again. That rhythm is a big part of why people become lifelong King readers. If you finish Misery and you enjoyed the voice, you can move in 2 directions. You can go more supernatural with The Shining, or you can go broader and more emotional with The Green Mile. If you only pick one starter from this entire guide, pick Misery, then decide. Another reason Misery works is that the setting and the situation stay understandable at every moment. You never have to keep a timeline straight. You never have to remember a family tree. You can focus on the writing itself. If you are new to horror, this matters. You get the tension without needing to love supernatural elements. It is also a good audiobook choice because the chapters are structured like clear scenes, which helps you follow even when you are multitasking. Carrie, Stephen King. This is the shortest path to understanding early Stephen King. It is horror with a classic small-town feeling, and it reads with the speed of a debut that wants to prove itself. For beginners, Carrie works because it is compact. You can finish it quickly and learn how King writes sentences, scenes, and tension without committing to a huge volume. It is also useful as a reference point. Many later King books feel more confident, more spacious, and more layered. Starting with Carrie lets you feel that growth when you read later work. If you are nervous about horror, Carrie is still a good choice because the prose is plain and the book does not rely on elaborate myth. It is readable, even if you are not a horror regular. A practical tip is to treat Carrie like a test drive. Read the first 2 reading sessions. If the voice pulls you forward, you are ready for almost any other King book. After Carrie, the smoothest next step is Misery, if you want tighter tension, or The Shining if you want a deeper atmosphere. The Shining, Stephen King. This is the entry for readers who want classic supernatural dread, but still want clear prose and a straightforward reading experience. It is often recommended as a first King because it represents what people think of as Stephen King horror. The caution is that it is more atmospheric than Misery. It takes time to build its pressure. For beginners who like slow tension, that is a benefit, not a problem. You get the sense of place, you get the feeling of isolation. You see how King uses ordinary observations to make a situation feel wrong. If you are coming from movies, this is also a good reminder. King's books usually feel more interior and more patient than a film adaptation. That is why starting with a readable title matters. There is also a practical series note. The Shining has a later companion novel, but you do not need it to enjoy this book. Read The Shining as a complete experience first. After you finish, your next step depends on what you liked. If you liked psychological tension, go to Misery. If you liked the emotional arc and kindness between people, try The Green Mile. The Green Mile, Stephen King. This is a beginner-friendly entry if you want something more humane and reflective, with tension that comes from consequence rather than constant fear. It also has a format advantage. It was originally released in parts, so the reading experience naturally breaks into manageable chunks. That makes it easier to keep momentum, especially on audio. For new King readers, The Green Mile shows his emotional range. People who think he only writes horror are often surprised by how warm and steady this book can feel. It is also a smart choice if you want to avoid the biggest beginner trap, which is choosing a huge book before you know you like his voice. The Green Mile is substantial, but it does not feel sprawling in the way some of his longest novels do. If you finish The Green Mile and want a tighter pressure cooker next, read Misery. If you want a more iconic horror atmosphere next, read The Shining. The goal here is not to collect titles. The goal is to build a path where each next book feels slightly more confident, not more exhausting. November 22nd, 63. Stephen King. This is the best starter if you like big immersive books and you do not mind a longer commitment, as long as the writing stays clear and the chapters keep moving. The main reason this works for beginners is that it feels more like a mainstream page-turner than a niche horror novel. The tone is steady, the prose is plain-spoken, the momentum is reliable. If you have only seen the Stephen King brand from the outside, this book often surprises people. It shows how he can build a long narrative without losing readability. There is also a decision benefit. If you finish November 22nd, 63 and you liked it, you can confidently try longer classics like It or The Stand later, because you will already know you enjoy spending time in his longer form style. If you start November 22nd, 63 and you feel the length, that is also useful information. It tells you to choose a tighter book next, like Misery, before you attempt the biggest novels. Long does not have to mean hard, but it should be your choice, not an accident. Once you finish your first Stephen King book, the next step is to change only one variable at a time. If you started with Misery and loved the tight tension, move to The Shining to add more atmosphere, or to Carrie to see his early voice in a shorter form. If you started with The Shining and you liked the slow build, read The Green Mile next for a different emotional register, then return to Misery for the cleanest pressure cooker experience. If you started with Carrie and you want a more polished version of the same direct storytelling, Misery is a natural upgrade. If you started with November 22nd, 63 and you want to test the famous long horror classics, your next step can be It, but only if you enjoyed the patience of a big book. The Stand is best saved for when you already know you trust his long arcs. It is rewarding, but it is not beginner-friendly. The Dark Tower route is different. If you want that mythic project, start it later. Read The Gunslinger after you have read at least 1 or 2 grounded King novels, so the tonal shift feels intentional. Formats matter more with Stephen King than people expect. The same book can feel easy or heavy depending on how you read it. For beginners, audio can be a great choice because King's sentences are conversational and clear. If you are trying your first King, Misery and The Green Mile both work well in audio because they have strong forward pull and clear scene structure. Print works best when you want to pause and absorb atmosphere. The Shining is a good example. If you like slow build, print can make the experience calmer. If you are choosing between editions, you may see different covers or different marketing labels. That does not change the core reading experience. Use the starter logic instead. Choose the lane that fits your comfort. A practical buying tip is to avoid overbuying. Get one starter book first. Finish it, then buy the next step. That protects your time and it keeps the project feeling light. If you want the simplest beginner plan, pick Misery in any format you enjoy. Then decide between The Shining, The Green Mile, or Carrie based on what you want next. Misery. Stephen King. A focused, claustrophobic thriller horror that teaches King's pacing through clean scenes and escalating pressure, making it an ideal first step before you try his longest and most iconic books. Here is the full beginner order as a simple action plan. Step 1. Pick one starter based on your comfort. Misery for the cleanest tension. Carrie for the quickest first win. The Shining for classic dread. The Green Mile for an emotional entry. November 22, 63, for a long but readable ride. Step 2. Read it with zero pressure to become a completionist. You are only testing fit. Step 3. If you loved it, pick your second book by changing one variable. Go longer or shorter. Go more supernatural or more realistic. Keep everything else steady. Step 4. Only then consider the high-friction starts. It is iconic, but it asks for patience. The Stand is huge and slow burn. The Gunslinger opens a separate mythic project. Save those for later when you already trust the voice. If you are sensitive to intensity, you can also control the experience by your reading sessions. Read in daylight, stop after a chapter. That keeps the tone manageable. If you prefer an even gentler first step, choose The Green Mile. It has tension, but it also has room to breathe. If you want the most direct test of whether King is for you, choose Misery and give it 50 pages. You will know the voice by then. Start small, finish one, then build your Stephen King shelf on purpose.